This is Kat Connor, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Cheers, Kat. It's Friday here.
It's Saturday here, so cheers to you.
Mm-hmm. I dig who you are. I dig what you do, and I love your confidence in writing. One of the things I was telling someone about you the other day, and you know how this goes. We can have this conversation, and maybe there are tens of thousands of people who care about us, and maybe it's less than that. But no matter what you do, no matter how famous you are, there are always going to be billions of people that have no idea who you are. You know,
Exactly.
and you've done this amazing thing with your Byte series. And then you said you had the courage to go, and that's it. We're done with that. We're going to do something else. How has that transition been for you?
It was a tough transition, to be honest, because I really enjoyed writing the Byte series. I loved the characters. The whole thing was really great fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I just went, no, that's it. It's the end. Ellie's done. We're moving on. But now I get to write spy PI stuff set here in New Zealand. And it's way, way fun. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Such a good time to be had winding people up in Upper Hutt.
Yeah. I love it. So when you say spy stuff, I know we've had conversations offline and you'll ask me things, or I'll look at part of your book and I'll give you hints and recommendations and stuff. But how valuable is that? I mean, what other resources are you using? There's all kinds of stuff out there about espionage. I like to think that my stuff is very specific to my little area, but where do you guys dig into?
Well, podcasts, pretty helpful. There's quite a few by ex-CIA and all sorts of other people, which are fun. Websites. So much info out there if you go looking, but you're magic. If I say, how am I going to do this? And you just tell me how it works. And then I've got this little pink black book that has stuff about surveillance, because that tends to be what I end up writing about a lot.
Right.
So it's fun, but I've also got my own codes now. So
nice.
Even more fun, because I've had these characters for 2 books, the 3rd book coming out this year. So they've developed.
I love it. So this is the 3rd book already?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You are a machine.
Because here's Lure the Lie.
All right.
Book 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Leave a Message.
Right.
Book 3.
Those look pretty thick.
They're not bad. They're about 80,000, just over 80,000 words. They're not massively thing, but there's a lot of Kiwi humor, which is goes down quite well. And the weird thing about this series is that my main character, I've got 3, but one of them, her nana, is involved in everything. She is this nosy, got to be involved old lady who causes more trouble than anybody else.
Yeah.
But she's so fun. And I based her on a combination of nanas that I've known and quite a bit on my nana, who was like Ronnie's nana, the wife of a police officer. And back in the day, that was a super serious thing. You know, you were the wife of a cop. It was a status thing. And she knew as much about police work as Granddad.
I see. Yeah, that tends to happen. I'm interested in when you write about surveillance, 98% of surveillance is a whole bunch of people running around trying to be relevant to the surveillance operation. But most everybody's not watching the person, at least in military style surveillance, right? And that's a certain kind.
Yep.
How do you keep that interesting? Like, and then Pete and Johnny were sitting in their Ford their Ford Explorer,
4 hours doing nothing.
Right, for 4 hours. Yeah. And then Pete fell asleep, and Johnny said, "You take a nap, then I'll take a nap." And okay. And they said, "Okay,"
Yeah, that's, you just have to show little bits of it, I think, and that's what I do. I don't sit some poor person in a car for 4 hours, and that's all we see. Them sitting in a car, chucking fast food wrappers into the back seat. I like to pick it up right before something happens.
Can I tell you
that there?
Yeah. Can I tell you a real life surveillance story that you should probably try to
Yes.
use at some point? You're going to like this.
Yes.
So this was a civilian surveillance operation paid for like by a court, and so I was hired from within a firm to go help with surveillance. Now, in this group of people, I have the most real life experience in doing like actual real surveillance and been trained in it. These other guys have done a lot of private eye based surveillance. There's a different level of play.
Yep.
And so we're in a subdivision where there's one road in. I mean, look, if you want to jump a fence, you can run through a field and everything, but there's one way in, one way out. So pretty easy to control. And we don't need to all be on top of the X. And so I say, hey, I'm going to go out of the subdivision. I'm going to make a right. And I'm just going to go down the road to the next place where I can just hang out in another subdivision, basically. And the other guy's like, oh, man, I'm going to be right here. And in case the guy goes by, and Jeff, my buddy Jeff, loses him from here to there. Because really what should happen is once he leaves his house, Jeff should say, he's leaving his house, I'll stay here, right? So this whole thing gets all set up. And my buddy Brian, meanwhile, works for the local police. And so I call him and I say, hey, man, we're doing a surveillance op. He's like, yeah, you guys called it in. I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, where are you at? I'm like, oh, I'm on this street. He's like, that is 5 houses away from my house. And I'm like, oh, no shit. Okay, this is funny. And he's like, well, where are you guys doing survey? Like, where's the subject? And I'm like, oh, they're on this other street. And he's like, I know the guy who's moving in next door. And so I talked to my buddy Jeff. Hey, is there a guy moving in next door? And he's like, yeah, there's a guy moving in next door. Okay, thanks, Jeff. And I hang up. And I'm like, yep, that's the house. And so Brian, I've known Brian forever, and I've known Jeff forever, and Jeff and Brian know each other. We all grew up together. And so Brian says, why don't I come by and hang out with you for a little bit? I'll bring you some tacos. And I said, that would be great. The first thing I want you to do, though, is go take Jeff tacos, because he's never going to know. He's like, I can absolutely do this because I know the guy next door. So I'll walk up, I'll knock on Jeff's window, who's in surveillance, and he's on the subject, right? And so he goes up, like, dunk, dunk, dunk. Hey, Jeff, do you want some tacos? And I didn't tell Jeff this was going to happen. And so Jeff's like, oh my God, yes, I do. Thank you. And he took the tacos and he's like, how did you? And then Brian walks towards the house because he just kind of walks across the way. Anyhow, it's a hilarious story because Brian was able to insert himself into our little surveillance op. And though you think you can't do that stuff, let's be honest, Jeff is sitting on the house on a civilian street with no traffic, and he's just sitting in his car, his regular car, for hours. And so there's different kinds of surveillance. There's like a harassing kind. It's like, hey, we're here. We're going to be here. But then there's like the stealthy kind. We didn't know what kind we were doing. So I'm like, fuck it, get some tacos. That's my story. How do you like that?
I love that story. I've got some ideas. I'll just be making little notes. Yep.
Yeah.
Because writing surveillance is fun. It's great fun.
People take it so seriously, and it is serious business. But the reality is sometimes the person doesn't try to lose you. It's just really hard to follow somebody, especially if you're trying to not be detected.
Yeah, I like to pick people.
Yeah.
When I'm walking. When I was doing my PI stuff, I'd just pick a person. I'd have a pram with a child in it, and we'd go for a walk, and then we'd pick a person. You don't suspect mothers and prams. No one looks twice at a mother and a pram or someone walking a dog. Mm-hmm. Great fun. You can follow them for quite a while before it gets a bit weird, so you cross the road. And they carry on their merry way, and you just wander back. Harassing people in Upper Hutt for years. Because it's just fun. It's just fun to see how far you can get and how much you can get away with before someone just stops and goes, are you following me?
Right. How far can they go? Like how far do you get before someone ever even asks you? Do they even know you're there?
No. They don't look. People don't look.
Right.
People are generally unaware of what's going on around them.
But if you're not doing international espionage or other things, you have no reason to think, unless you're paranoid, you have no reason to think that there's someone following you.
Yeah, that's true. But these days you should be aware of your surroundings. You should be aware if someone is behind you and has been behind you for some time.
Right.
And why? You know, I was a mum with a baby in a pram, so I was probably not a threat. But if I'd been a big burly bloke and I'd been behind that person for, say, 4 kilometers,
Right.
then they're not doing a very good job of protecting themselves. So, it's awareness,
This is not classified, but it's right on the edge. And people would get upset if I talked about it, but it's not classified, so we can talk about it. And we're not talking about anything specific, so it's even less classified. Okay. But there's a special way of talking in the Army for surveillance, and this is a common thing. And like they might have slightly different words, but this is vocabulary we use so that we can talk on the radio in the open, and it'll all be English words. But unless you know what the words mean, you don't know what's happening. Like for example, if you're going to head north, you say star. That's an actual thing. You say star, right? Not a big surprise, North Star. Maybe you guys would say south when you go north or something. You'd say something because it's like doesn't help. Yeah. But yeah, there's a way of talking so that you can communicate who's following who's backing them up, who's in position. All this stuff has to fly around. And you can't be all on the mic at the same time. So it's got to be really quick, really quick. So even if you are listening and you manage to decode what's happening, which can happen, it will sound like a bunch of craziness because it's hyper fast code talk.
Just words. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Do you use something like that at all in your stories?
I do. Oh, I love it. It's so much fun. I came up with my own one because these guys have been around a while now. So they have their own way of saying what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's my little notebook of things that has all sorts in it.
Yeah.
But like if they need someone to phone them, they have a way of saying, pick up the phone.
Right.
And so if they say blowfly is our term for my group of characters for electronic surveillance.
Yeah.
So something's really annoying. It's blowfly. Because I use drones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
In the new book, there's drones. There's drones following my characters. There's drones because there's a whole bunch of bad guys out there, doing bad guy stuff.
Yeah.
So they've got drones up. And then Ellie goes, well, screw them. If they've got drones up, we're putting drones up. Right. I was just about to ask you. I'm like, so you and I know because we've talked about this. There's counter surveillance, and then there's counter surveillance, and it's like concentric circles. Sometimes they overlap, but you have these rings, and so like, okay, I'm at the train station reading a newspaper for 5 hours. That is my job, and if I never come into play, but I'm covering the train station because someone's got to get on that train and go with the person, and not everybody can do that. So that's your job. Yeah. And so that means that someone else is at the train station, and I've got to determine who that might be. So that if they sit there for 5 hours and they get on, I've already seen them, they've already seen me, we know we're playing the game. And then you can probably have a guy who's like already on the train or something like they've cut on the earlier stop or something like, hey, okay, get on the stop. It's time now to see if you. And so this stuff can get really bananas ridiculous with the covering for the coverage, so you can cover that covering coverage. Yep. Well, I had that with this book, with the one I've just written. It's called Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. It becomes quite obvious why as you get into it. But there's so many layers, and they don't know how many layers of surveillance there are on their person that they're supposed to be protecting. So they have no idea how deep this goes, how many people are involved,
right?
And it gets really fun because we've got bikies involved. Oh, so much fun with that. Are they part of it? Are they something else? We don't know. And then there's the drones. So who's operating the drones? If these guys have been seen and one's arrested, who's operating these drones?
Yeah.
And then there's another layer that you find out about going forward, and you're like, holy crap. So what is this person? Right. Who are they? Who are they attached to? Why are they doing this? Such fun.
One of the things that happens when you do this kind of work is comms are always a trouble. Like if we were doing practice surveillance. We were in DC in the area over there, and we didn't all have the same model of phone. And so I was like, I have the guy, I'm doing the thing. And then next thing you know, someone else is doing, they have, and you can't have two people have the guy. And so as I'm communicating, I've got, and I send the code, and all of a sudden the other person's there, and I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, I've got this. And I'm like, no, I've had him since here. I'm going to break off when we get up there, but I'm not breaking off yet. Get off my guy. He's like, no, I have the guy. And so now we're not fighting, but we're disagreeing on
who's got the guy.
Owns. Yeah. And I'm like, well, fuck you. I'm leaving. I'm like, you can have the guy. But it was our phones, because if you have an Android phone and an Apple phone, they don't always want to talk. And so unless you account for that ahead of time with a separate app or what, like, hey, here's a picture, send it off. Oh, good luck. Cross-platform,
Yeah, it won't do it. So what we do to get rid of that problem is that the three, Ben, Ronnie, and Crockett, all use iPhones. Anyone associated with Ronnie's business, her private eye business, they all use iPhones because it makes life easier. They're all communicating on one platform. It doesn't matter what the bad guys are using. We don't care. So they're all iPhones. So they can do all the iPhone things that other phones can't always do, which is fun.
Yeah.
And they can also track each other very, very easily.
Right.
Which is important sometimes. You need to know where people are.
Oh my gosh, it's super important.
Especially if something bad's going down, you want to know that your person is not in the vicinity. So that's great fun. So much.
This is more for the audience, and I'm positive you and I talked about this. Like, let's say you're the person who gets onto the subway, and I'm following Kat, and Kat gets on the subway, like, all right, I'm blah 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 blah, and everybody's like, okay, Pete's got Kat, and he's gonna follow. He's gonna go on the train. I'm not gonna get off the same stop as you. Someone's gonna race ahead, or someone's gonna be in that area. Now they might say you have to stay on Kat because we couldn't get someone to the station, but someone's gonna pick you up at that station so that I don't, and so. Unless I'm told otherwise, I'm staying on that train. And I don't know which way you're going. And so I probably missed in that stop. And so the next thing you know, I'm half an hour behind everybody.
Yeah.
And unless you have that tracking machine, I might be hours out of the loop, because you're like, where, and you can't be like, where are you guys? Because they're they're actually doing the work. And you're just trying to figure out where the fuck am I going to go? And it can get real crazy, and it takes a lot of people to cover someone. Yeah,
it does. I know you and I have talked at length about surveillance, which makes it fun for me when I'm putting a surveillance team together for the story.
Right.
I'm like, how many people can I free up?
Yeah.
From their normal jobs? How many people can I send and throw at this to make sure it works? But we did use trains, and we used trains in leave a message. No. Yes, leave a message. Because it's hard to follow someone on a train.
Right.
And so I had the three of them split up. Two went to one station, one went to another station on foot.
Yeah.
And they got on the train, and they sat in places that you can't be seen at other stations. Because you've got to know. That means you've got to know what side the station's on.
Oh, my gosh.
On that track.
Yeah.
For however many stops are left. So, and then they get off at the main station, because it's Wellington, it's a big station,
right?
But everyone gets off and goes different directions to eventually end up in the same place in the dark outside the War Memorial, where you're only going to find homeless people in sort of that time of night.
Yeah.
And then they set off from there again on foot to the place they think this guy's been held. So it's just so much fun. You're like on a train. Twice in that story, there were trains, which meant no one could really follow them.
Right. It's very tough. It's very tough. If you're going to be discreet, right? Like if you were like, hey, can I break cover? No. Okay, well, then then if you're not going to break cover, that means it's okay to lose the person, because hopefully you've got like a home location, like they're going to go back home and we'll get back on them. But there's so one of the ways to do a very gentle, invisible form of your own counter surveillance is to like go, oh shoot, and oh shoot, like anybody would do, and then you go the other direction,
around the
right?
other way. Yep.
And like this is for anybody listening, if you ever want to do your own counter surveillance, go into a convenience store and just shop for 5 minutes and touch 25 items. and let them see you doing like, oh yeah, am I going to get the blueberry? Nah. And so they've got to go. Someone has to go now and figure out if you've done a dead drop, and oh my God, that guy's out of play for the rest of the day. Because if he thinks he finds something, he's like, I found something. It's a sticky pad that maybe fell off some guy's shoe, and it's like it's got a bunch of hash marks on it. And I don't. Okay, well now you gotta grab that, capture it, right? And oh my God, like you can it's because anything can be something, and nothing is anything all at the same time.
And isn't that great?
Yes.
Like from an author's point of view, that is just the most fun. I can send people all over the place.
Right.
And that clue, that thing, that one thing that someone maybe did put there, the chances of finding it in a timely fashion, especially if you do it knowing that someone's going to be in there looking, and all you want to do is keep them off the street.
Right.
So they're busy looking for something.
Yeah.
And you're busy going to the real dead drop.
Yeah.
Yep. You're off to the real dead drop. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Great
and
fun.
the dead drop could be a signal. Like, nope, I've got a tail. And all I'm going to do is
go into this shop and look at a magazine or whatever.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. If you see a yellow lighter in the front row of lighters, or if you don't see a yellow lighter in the front row of lighters, that meeting's off, right? It can be anything. It really can be anything. And that's the whole point. Like when you do a bona fides, you don't go, the eagle flies on Tuesday, because nobody would say that shit. That's not a real thing, right? I know we must have talked about this, because it's got to be something that's clear to you and the other person. Like Kat and I like tequila, right? I'm like,
oh yeah.
Did you get that tequila package I sent you? That bottle of tequila, that 1800 I sent you? And you were like, oh no, I didn't. I'm like, okay, there's the clue right there. Yep. And someone else would hear that and be like, oh, they're talking about it. They wouldn't even pay attention because it's so mundane.
Because it's a normal conversation. It's just, and that's the whole thing, isn't it? Just keeping it normal. Nothing's going on here. There's nothing to see.
The other thing I want to ask you about, and I love what you're doing this. I love that you've expanded what you're doing, because it's just it's inspiring. Because anybody who wants to write, I can just look at you and be like, holy shit, this lady, like, writing an 80,000 word book, as you know, it's not for beginners.
No.
And then to crank them out regularly is just not, it's just not for beginners. You've got to work up to that.
Well, you got to commit to the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot. There's a lot of time, which means you're going to miss out on other things. Just the way life is. But you don't miss out on your tequila. You can do that, right?
Yeah. When you say time too, because it's not, especially for you, like you have a little black book right in front of you, just in case maybe we talk about something and you want it. That is time, right?
I've got two, because this one's dedicated to Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. So it's my little Bible. It's got everything, all the sayings that Crockett uses, because he's an Australian.
Right.
Ronnie's a Kiwi. Ben's an American. So their particular phrases and the way they speak, it's all in my little book. But then, this has got all the codes.
Right.
Because every book has codes in it. And I have to know that they work first before sharing.
Yeah, and so it's not just the exercise of sitting down and writing 80,000 words. It's knowing your universe and having your own references. And this is why it's not beginner work. Like, you have to start at some point, but you can't hold yourself to the standard of, I'm going to crank a book a year out or a book every 8 months out. My buddies Andrews and Wilson, and you should come on the show when I haven't booked them yet, but they've only gone up like a rocket ship. So they write military thrillers, and their own stuff is great. And then it's branched off into a spin-off series. And now they're like, I think they're writing for Robert Ludlum, and I think they're writing for Clancy now. And so they're a tandem writing team. And so it's like book. And they just crank them out. But they also have regular lives. They when you see them, they're not like, they're like, we're always busy, we're always writing, but they can manage it,
Yep. Because you have your writing part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of your brain. The writing part of my brain just kind of takes over if I'm in the middle of writing. If it's like it gets to a crucial point with me, and then it's just goes. I'm not stopping. I'm not setting this aside for anything. I don't take phone calls. I become a hermit. And I get it done. Because there's just this point where it just consumes you. You've got to find out what's going on. The last book, which is with my editor now, that took ages before it suddenly just hit me. And I went, oh, shit. Oh. Because instead of just having the three main guys, Ronnie, Crockett, and Ben, the stories are usually told from two angles. Lure the Lie and Leave a Message were Ronnie and Crockett. So Ronnie will have a chapter, she's doing this, then Crockett will jump in, he'll take the next bit. And sometimes the bad person has a chapter, but that's always third person. But in this new one, Ronnie's cousin, Donald, who is hilarious, he winds his way in there and he's got his own chapters. So you're learning more and more about him. He's causing strife with the bad neighbors, with Nana. So Ronnie's trying to control that while she's trying to do her job. And everything kind of overlaps, because it does. In life, shit overlaps. You might be out on surveillance, but you go home at some point, you've got another life waiting for you. And it gets a bit messy, which is really fun to write because life is messy. Things happen that you don't expect. You know, your Nana gets arrested. Things happen.
Nana.
Yeah. Or you're on your way home to access something that you need to access on a secure computer, which you have. So you're on your way home and you see all the police lights and it's party time across the road and the cops are there. Then you spot your Nana. Yeah. So what do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do? You can't just ignore it and carry on. You need to deal with it and then carry on. Yeah. So that adds an extra layer of humor, shall we say.
It does.
What could be really, really stressful.
Right. But you had a character. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
You had a character in your last series called Ellie, and she had some superpowers that helped her and helped you tell the story. When I talk about actual like spy stuff, you know, doing surveillance or trying to run sources, you know, it's the weird shit that happens. And you're like so 100% true story. I'm doing surveillance. It's our turn. We're going to pick the car up as we leave the place that we were. And we've got it. And it's a white Tercel or something like that, right? So it's a very common car. It's like, okay, yeah, we got it. And then right as we're handing off, there's a rise in the road. And so we lose sight of the car, but there's nowhere for the car to go. But we come over the rise, 2 white cars. One's going to go left, one's going to go straight. And they are the same make of car. So you're like, well, what do we do? You make a call and you say, hey, I'm not sure which car it is. Keep in mind, you got to be spaced out. It's the other car's like, follow the one going left. And we're already like making our decision. We're like, we're going left, you know, and all this stuff happens in an instant. And we lost the people. We lost instantly. The moment they left the place where we were trying to follow them, we lost. And it wasn't like, oh, you guys suck. And it was like, yeah, what are you going to do? Like, we all saw that rise as we went over it. We understand, like, who knew? Who knew there'd be 2 of the same car, you know?
That's right.
And then the other thing is, they had a car, and this happens all the time, and they'll say, it's I want to know, a blue Chevy Blazer. And you're like, is it? I thought it was a Dodge Caravan. What's going on? You know?
No one knows what the car is,
right? And because you're looking, and I don't know why, but like you get it wrong all the time. And so we, this is again true story. So we're looking at the car. We see the guy that we're following get out of the car, and he's parked, and that person goes to where they're going. And so like, okay, well, he's not here because it's a Blazer. Like, well, we just saw that person. It absolutely is that person. You know, there's no other way around it, right? I'm like, well, it's not a Chevy Blazer. And I'm like, I'm looking at the car that they got out of, and it's, in this case, we'll say a Dodge Caravan. And here's the license plate. No, that's the license plate of the Blazer. Like, are you telling me that they swapped cars and license plates? Because, okay, maybe. But now you have to convince a whole bunch of people, like, which reality is real, you know? And it's, oh my God. So, but you can't mess around with too much of that stuff in your book because there has to be enough knowledge that stays true that you can tell your story.
Yeah, you've got to have you got to know where that line is and where the truth is coming from.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes I can see it really clearly. Sometimes I can't. It depends who I'm writing too. When I was writing Ellie, there was a lot that I couldn't see clearly because she had twisted it. And just the way her brain worked, which we determined was due to brain injuries, she had quite a few, was her brain saw things, or she could determine things that the rest of the team couldn't, but they were prepared to trust her on that.
Right.
Because it was proven every time. Yeah. At first, she wouldn't even say anything. She'd be like, oh, I could have done that. And then when she starts letting them in, going, actually, I hate to tell you this, but I can actually see what happened. And they're like, yeah, right, psych consult for you. And they run through everything. Like she's like, if I tell them what I can really see and what I know, that I know it, am I going to end up off the team and on a psychiatric hold? Because this is nuts. And she's convinced she is nuts.
Right.
Quite a long way through the book. Nuts. Yeah. She's like, because her mother was had a serious mental illness, so she was always convinced that was going to be hereditary, and it was going to be her that got it.
When you
so who's to say?
Who is it? I don't know. But you do need to have those things, right? Like there's probably 100 Sherlock Holmes characters on TV because it's just a classic character. They see what nobody else can see, you know, and they say words like indubitably and stuff like that. But when you are messing with that line, you know, and you're trying to spice things up, because legitimately, if you're chasing an international biker gang that is doing things that are illicit, it's probably not just the FBI that's chasing them.
That's right.
There's probably this country's thing and that country's thing.
Yep.
And so you're
people
like,
everywhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there legitimately could be an Air Force, or you're just in an area that's highly contested. Like I always use Berlin in the Cold War. Like everybody's playing there. Like everybody wants to be in the game. Everybody's working everybody. And you're constantly debriefing on who was talking to you. It becomes a circus. They call it.
You never get anything done. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But you don't want to, again, you want to know where that line is, but you also want to push it and be like, I bet nobody expects this. How much is that deliberate, and how much is that are the characters informing you on where the line is?
Most of that is what my characters are up to. My characters just do their thing. With Ellie, especially with that whole series, there was a lot of I see stuff as video, right?
Okay.
So I would see the scenes unfold, but what I didn't know was what happened next, because I'd write what I can see, and then the next thing would roll out, and I'd be like, "Oh shit, this is where we're going." Okay, so I was pretty much along for the ride.
Yeah.
And
that's fun
to a certain extent. And it's fun because you don't know what's going to happen. So that's why, I mean, I didn't outline because I couldn't outline because I didn't know where that story was going to go, or who was going to be involved, or who was going to still be standing at the end. That's the fun part for me.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
It's less like that with the Kiwi stuff. The Kiwi stuff, I can see it, but I'm not as, I don't know, consumed maybe, because there's three main characters. It's not just one person's point of view. I think it makes a difference, which is fun for me.
Yeah. When we talked about spying, or I talked to someone else about it, there are so many different ways to approach it. There are so many different things. We're all like in this multi-circled silo, you know, we're all in the same silo, but like my little part is very skinny over here. So like when I had Joe Pistone on the show, right, the actual Donnie Brasco, you know, even though you would think, oh, being an undercover agent working with the mob for years and years is totally different than what I do, there's so much of it that's the same. And I was asking him, because from my side of the world, the Army is bad at letting me go do what I need to do and giving me access, right? Like I need more room to go do things, and they're like, we don't trust you, right? But Joe had good people managing him and keeping the FBI off his back, because I guarantee you the big FBI is like, who is that guy? Has he turned? He's gone, but he hadn't. But you do walk a line with that. So you're always worried about that as an institution, but you also have to try to give that person freedom. So anyhow, so as Joe and I are talking, we can relate to what it is to be one or the other thing. And also, and I think this is interesting, going back a few minutes in our conversation, how much of your soul can you burn on being involved in this dangerous, oftentimes illegal or illegal adjacent thing? How long can you do that before you become either the thing that you are or you're worse and you wreck your own self?
Yep. I was talking about that with someone the other day, actually. I think it was even one of my kids, because one of my characters, Crockett, he was deep undercover with a bikie gang in Australia and then in the States. And what's that line? Where's that line? For him, he does some things and I'm looking at him going, yeah, you can do some things, all right, buddy. But then there's this other guy, Enzo, who was doing the same thing as Crockett, but they didn't know. Neither of them knew the other one was within, because you wouldn't, would you? How would you know? Enzo did a whole heap of stuff. Enzo's got some very special talents, and he can just compartmentalize that shit and it doesn't affect him. But he's the one that Ronnie didn't used to like to call if she needed information. She didn't want Enzo involved because he had ways of getting it that were illegal in most countries. But now I've discovered that she's not so squeamish anymore. So when she needed information and Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, she reached out straight away and said, I've got this guy. He's in the cage in the office. I need to know what he knows. Enzo went and found out. It's like, oh, look at that. She's changed from first meeting him to now. So over the course of 3 books, her what she's prepared to do to get the information has changed.
It's awesome talking to you. I love it. Everybody, this is Kat Connor, and if you look on down below here or just in the remarks, at least on YouTube, they don't always go to every place, so you're gonna have to look at it. Just look up Kat Connor, Connor, on Amazon, and just buy some damn books. I mean, just say that out loud.
Yes, do it. Buy some books.
Right. Buy some damn
actually,
books. Awesome.
Smashwords at the oh no, is it today? What day is it? The 11th. Oh, it's the 10th for you, right?
Yes.
You can still get most of my books half price on Smashwords.
All right.
For the rest of today. Yeah. It's Read an ebook week.
Yeah. There you go. Go to Smashwords. I'll see if I can pull that up for you guys while we're talking a little bit. What have I helped you with specifically? Like, I give you a lot of things. I throw a lot at you because I'm like, Kat wants it. I'm just going to keep throwing at you.
Yep.
But like, how much has that helped?
Oh, hugely, Pete. Every time I sit down and go, okay, this is what's going on. I've got, especially with surveillance stuff, I've got this team doing that. And I've got a little plan in my head of the area. So, I mean, I'm writing at home now. So it's home. So I know where those streets go and who can get out and who can't. So I have my surveillance teams. And then I have another surveillance team on the top of the counter surveillance team because I really want to know what's going on.
Right.
Always anything that is surveillance related, because it is such a thing with so many moving parts. But it's also funny. There's funny shit that happens. And you've told me some stories that are hilarious when you're on surveillance. So I try and don't let someone sit in the car for 6 hours, you know?
Yeah.
I try and make it so that they're doing something, they're having a chat, they're on the phone, whatever. Little things like take your seatbelt off.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And using the visors to communicate to whoever's coming down the road.
Oh boy, someone in the American Army counterintelligence area is going to be pissed at me. But the
Yes.
reality is, if you watch, what is that movie with Kevin Costner, Mr. Brooks? That's
Mhm.
got source meat stuff all through it. There's all kinds of code and all kinds of things in there. It's a great book to get examples of how to set up a meet, and
Okay.
that's visors and backseat talks and all kinds of things. But yeah, you watch that and you wouldn't know that that stuff was in there. But whoever wrote that screenplay knew something about how to run sources, which is spy stuff.
Which is fun, right?
Mm,
Fun.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean, I use everything you tell me ends up being used somewhere for
right,
something
good,
because I'll be doing something and go, oh, what did Pete say about that? Oh yeah, I
yeah,
got this. Yeah, now I've got it.
that's
And
fantastic.
it makes me laugh when I do it because I'm like, the only person who will ever know if he sees this is Pete. He'll be
Yeah,
like, that
yeah,
was
yeah,
mine. Yeah, that was mine.
yeah. Oh,
But
that's so good.
it's just so much fun. And to
Yeah,
know that I've probably got it right
yeah,
is better because then I know if someone picks this up,
yeah.
they're not going, oh, for God's sake, no one would ever do that.
I had
Which
a guy.
is what I
Go
do.
ahead.
No,
I had a
that's
guy.
just what I do. Yeah.
I had a guy on the show the other day. He's a fellow counterintelligence agent, and he went to one of our big courses. It's called FCITIC, and I can tell you what it stands for. Basically, it just means that like really advanced counterintelligence agent shit. And I was asking him, okay, so you are ahead of everybody else in your team, and you need to get them trained up and good. However, this is like real work. Like you're trying to keep people alive. You're trying not to get killed. You're trying to find things out. You're not like people talk about finding a needle in a haystack. You're not even allowed to find these needles. They just point to a field of hay and they go, "There's a whole field. You figure that shit out, right?" Because the bad guy doesn't want to tell the army guy that like, "Hey, we're gonna blow something up." It's just not likely to happen. So you're trying to develop your guys, but they can screw a lot of things up. They can actually screw up so bad that like you're like, "Oh fuck, I can't put you in the field ever again," and you just don't know until it's like I always say, like a lot of these things, like teach people how to swim. Okay, so I've described for you how to swim from here to way over there, but at some point I got to let you do it. But if I let you do it here while people are shooting at you, oh god, you know what? You just sit in the back seat. And so it's really tough to balance the development versus the actual application of that skill. And most agents, Pete would say, in the army, tactical side, got to make all this context happen.
Yeah.
They never develop professional field skills because they just don't get to do it often enough.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. It really does. Yeah, I just go out and do it by myself and harass people without them noticing because it's fun. It's
Right.
fun to see how far I can go, how much I can get away with before someone
Yeah.
turns around.
Yeah.
But then I have been known to be walking down the street and turn around myself and go back the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that. And I'll do the old shoot, turn around and go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to get a look at something that I thought I saw.
Right. Sometimes you actually forget shit too. This is what makes it so hard to follow someone or to, just weird things happen. When you run a source, you're trying to protect that person, and so you're trying to control what they do. However, you don't live their life and you don't live in their space. And so you show up and you're like, "Hey, I want you to walk this way." You don't tell them, "I'm going to see if you're being followed," because you don't want to tell them that, right? And so when you do that, the person may or may not comply because they're like, "Why would I walk this way? I don't ever walk this way." And all spies are like, "You have to walk a different way wherever you go at all times," And they're like, "Yeah, but you're right there. I can see you. Hey, I'm not going to walk around the block and then come over and be like, hey, like that's ridiculous." So you're trying to take some kind of security measures because the book says you're supposed to, but the book doesn't always know what to do. And you must be adding elements like that in there where you're like, this is not how we do it, but this is how this guy does it. And so fuck, we're just going to do it that way until, the book is great when the book works out, but most of the time the book doesn't work.
Sometimes it doesn't work. You just got to wing it. It's like, I'll have my characters run a surveillance detection route.
Right.
If I think there's a problem, or Ronnie thinks there's a problem, and when the drones were up, She was like, I need to get a good look at what's going on. So she went, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go home. They were hiding this girl looking after her. And she went, guys, I'm just going to go home and walk the dog. And they're all like, oh, damn, wish we'd thought of that because we don't like her any more than you do. But she did. She went home. She got the dog.
Yeah.
What she was actually doing was going to go meet her cousin because he had something to tell her. But that's when she spotted the first drone. She's like, okay, I know where you are. Then she sees a second one. She goes, right, you think we're somewhere inside this circle. So she takes the dog. She goes to her nana's retirement home. And she ends up leaving the dog there because they'll bring the dog back. And then she does it again. And she comes back round and she sees both those drones. So she's like, right. She goes home. She changes completely. Right. So instead of wearing what she puts on completely different clothes, completely different hat on her head, grabs something to eat and walks out the front door and goes a different way to see if anything is up on the other way she can get to Crockett's place. And there's nothing. So she's like, right, okay. So they're watching the main road, thinking that we're going to go for the south or the north. So then she knows exactly where they need to go and how they need to get there. They can't use that road. But it was so much fun. And if they saw her again, they're like, okay, is it her? Because she hasn't got the dog. What did she do with the dog?
Right. Right.
And then she comes out again. She's wearing completely different clothes.
Right.
With a cap on her head.
Which is the real thing you do. You're like, all right, I'm going to throw them off.
Change everything. Yep.
Yeah, you change cars, you change clothes, you change all those things.
Well, I got a really fun scene to start with that where I really enjoyed it. So they know that these drones are watching for them. They need to move this kid. They need to get her closer to where they need to be. So they decide to bring in a couple more teams and they do a big switch up at college. Actually, there's a covered area so the drones can't see what's going on.
Right.
There's 2 teams on Harleys. There's 2 teams in 2 different cars. So they just switch. They switch clothes, they switch motorbikes, they switch cars, and they all leave at the same time. So drones, who are they watching? Who are they going to follow? They're going to follow the same clothes and the same bike and the same car that they saw before. And they get the hell out of Dodge that way. Yeah. Yeah. It was great fun. It was just so much fun. It's like, of course, that's what they'd have to do. They would have to switch it up, make it look like it's them.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the classic turns in The Departed, that movie, is that there's more than one mole on that team. You know, on Jack Nicholson's team. Like, you know, he's one of the other guys is there, and he's like, think about why, you know, as he's dying, you know, he like reveals that he's also working for a different agency. Do you have any of those kind of turns at all? Like, are you using that device to spice things up?
Not yet in this one. I did in the Byte series. There were a couple of very dodgy people inside the FBI who were giving information to people they shouldn't have been. In this series, not so much because it's 3 different agencies working together most of the time. Yeah. So we've got the Americans, we've got the Australians, and then we've got Ronnie, the Kiwi, who is no longer. The biggest lie she tells herself is that she's no longer in the game. Yeah. That's her biggest lie. She says she's a PI. She 100% tries to believe that is what she is, and yet she is constantly being given new missions. Right. But she's not in the game anymore. She doesn't work for New Zealand anymore. She just... And they've become, the 3 of them have become the dream team that get given jobs that no one else wants. no one else wants to do. Or in Ronnie's case, because she's really, really good at finding people, that's her skill. They're given jobs where they don't want Ronnie looking for somebody. They don't want her to beyond the outside coming in because she will find them.
Yeah.
So the best way to keep her occupied is to put her on something. So
what your 3 different characters from your 3 different agencies, what made them good at their job? Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm a counterintelligence agent. Doesn't mean you're any damn good, right? So how did they become as skilled as they are? And are they still getting better?
Oh, yeah, absolutely getting better. Ben has been around for quite a few years. He is an actor. This is his day job. He is an actor. As an actor, he gets into places that maybe normal people don't get because he's quite famous,
right?
Which goes against what he actually does, because when he needs to be low key, he's recognized all the time. They use that, though. They use that to their advantage. But he gets invited to all these fancy parties and into embassies because he's really well known and he's an American. He can go anywhere. And they go, oh, yeah, right, you're that actor. And he's busily gathering intelligence, and he is extremely good at gathering because of who he is. He's an actor. He can be anybody, and he just sits there and he just asks the questions and lets it all come in. Crockett was a deep undercover guy until he actually came from the Byte series, Crockett. He's the last man standing. So his skill level is pretty high, but he's also he's a nice bloke. He's an Australian guy. He's getting back to being more Australian and working with Kiwis. There's a little bit of rivalry with him and Ronnie because Australia's always stealing our stuff. So there's a lot of back and forth with those two, but he is very good at what he does.
I love it.
And he runs a team called the Tradies. And they are the guys that go into houses and install all the surveillance gear. And they are tradies. They go in and they will paint your walls and they will do the whole bit. Meanwhile, they're busy installing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of fun.
There's a counter team for that. And they're probably also trading people. They're like, oh, my God, look at all this.
Yeah. If they need that team to go in, then no one else is available to sort this guy's house out, and he's getting desperate. And Crockett will go, "Oh, I've got some guys, they're between jobs," and it's fun because he's a really skilled guy at what he does, and he can get people to talk. He's just this bloke, He doesn't look threatening. He's big, but he's not threatening. He's just a friendly guy, and friendly gets results.
It does. It's being easy to talk to gets results. And shutting up gets results. It's a lot of what we do is initiative. Like, I'm just going to leave the camp every day and meet somebody new. If I just do that, I'm going to be relevant at some point. And then you add the other stuff you do, and it's like all of a sudden you start to become someone on the battlefield. Let me ask you this, because one of the things that I know about books and this kind of genre you're in is that this stuff is getting optioned all the time. Is anyone talking to you about that kind of thing? I mean,
no, but they should
prolific.
Be.
Yeah,
they should be. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was thinking about this last night. I was thinking, you know what? The Kiwi series, the Veronica Tracy series, would be fantastic as movies.
Yeah.
Because of the way it's done and because it's at home, Yeah. So I had my editor did point out she didn't think something was very realistic in the beginning of the new book. Well, it's actually chapter 3. There's a gunfight in the middle of Ferguson Drive, Upper Hutt. And she goes, oh, that would never happen. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. That would never happen. And I went, a guy got shot dead outside McDonald's a few years back. Where were you?
There you go.
There was a stabbing, Golders Road, a few years back. We have had axe murderers. We have had all sorts of shit. Don't tell me no one's going to open fire on Ferguson Drive. It's just a matter of when. These guys were bikies, so
they're not exactly rule followers.
No, and we have had our troubles in the past.
Yeah,
the 80s were pretty crazy here with bikies and all sorts of things. So there's no reason to assume it could never happen.
Ugh.
She goes, "Oh, no one will believe it." I said, "But that's the fun of it." I always
Yeah.
say nothing happens here, and shit happens here all the
All
time. You
the
just
time.
don't realize. People just,
Yeah. And it's
or they
also a
go,
make-believe world that you're working in. You're just setting it in a place that,
"Yeah, that's right."
people get murdered everywhere all the time,
They
and
do. They do.
whatever. Yeah. So, and then you don't put your books on Audible. Are you thinking
No,
about going over to the audio side?
kind of, but it's really expensive.
Very expensive.
And because I'm in New Zealand, I can't do the royalty share that
Okay.
Americans and Brits can do.
Yeah.
So, which makes it less expensive because then you get this great voice, but you're sharing royalties rather than fronting up
Right.
10 grand to start with.
Right.
So until Audible start doing that, no.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But
Yeah. We're like 55 minutes in, and it seems like we're just getting started. But what do you want to ask me? Because we haven't had a chance to catch up. What do you want
no, we
to?
haven't. What do I want to ask you, Pete? Okay, here we go. Thinking about Enzo and his special skills, like he's, enhanced interrogation. How far do you go before it is illegal?
One of the critical skills that someone in my field has to have is a disregard for the rules. I have seen things that I'm uncomfortable with, and not things that I have done, but I certainly didn't stand up and say, "This is wrong," because I'm playing in a combat zone. And so I'm like, whoa, boy, I wouldn't do that. I don't know that's happening, and I'll never talk about what I saw, but it's also like, okay, this is us and them, and you're them, and this is not a good day for you, and it's going to be bad, and that's just how it is. So is that in the black, real dark color of gray, maybe charcoal, maybe charcoal with 2 or 3 coats.
Yeah.
And but at some point you have to be okay with it. And I can't say this. I have terminated a source, which is I mean I killed them, but I let everybody know that I was with this guy. This guy was with me. And so I didn't expect that guy to survive. But we had to get him off our camp and teach him not to come back to our camp because we couldn't trust him anymore. And so how do you do that? How do you make that person stay away? How do you make it so they never go to American camp again?
Yeah, you got to put the word out that.
Yeah, is that legal?
Yeah.
Is that gray? Oh man, that's so gray. Like that's so like
gray.
Yeah,
it's probably gray with sparkly bits in it. It's like
yeah, you're like, oh my god, and it is dark, and so you have to be willing to get really dark on those things, and when you play on that level, and the costs are that high, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get too drunk. You're going to get arrested. You're going to do things you're not supposed to do. You're going to get someone killed that matters, that someone cares about. Those things are going to happen. That's just how it is when you play in the major leagues of the spy game. People die. I mean, you look at like what James Bond does. Entire neighborhoods are crushed. You're like, what? You can't. No one's gonna let you.
He had some fun, all right.
Yeah. So for someone like Enzo, they've probably accepted that they have to make those decisions, because if you haven't, then you probably can't play that game.
You wouldn't be able to do it, would you?
Right. To include murder, because you're like, this is a cost of business. Like that. I don't know if I had to murder somebody and that was part of my job working, I would probably have to do it. I've never been in that position, but because of the impact of being in that room, staying alive in that room, and doing the thing you have to do at that level, I think it's possible that you have to kill that person, whoever it is.
So that's interesting, and it just occurred to me now that there is actually a murder at the end of that book, because I never thought of it as a murder.
Right.
The whole time I was writing it was not a murder. Crockett does it.
Right.
But it was never a murder in their eyes. It was what had to be done.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, oh no, it just made me realize it's actually murder. So he could get in some serious shit for that.
Right. Right. And maybe that's held over his head too, because I've seen things where I'm like, man, I never get in trouble. I can sell these guys out, And it never came down to that. One of the good things about like the high end stakes and things, people are just too busy. And when I got caught up into some busybody stuff, and they're like, Pete's been bouncing camp to camp, and I'm like, I've not been bouncing camp to camp. What are you talking about? And he had guns, like, and at this point, guns were a gray zone, and I'm like, not me. I didn't have any guns. You don't admit to that shit. Reality was, I did have guns. And I had guns because the commander's like, hey, we can't protect you. You need to get some guns. And so we're like, oh, okay, great. Well, you can authorize that. The commander can authorize almost anything. And so we had guns. And so there was guns. There was a container that, I used to live at, that had my shit in there. And so they're like, these are your guns. And I'm like, nope, not my guns. Those are just guns. I don't know. Yeah. And in the real world, that would be illegal as hell. But there was no way to legally do what we were doing, and no one's going to sign up. And if we don't protect ourselves, no one was going to. This isn't a place where people are getting shot, heads cut off, eyes gouged out, all these things.
Yep.
And so what's gray, it really doesn't matter. What's black kind of doesn't matter, and people are getting murdered every day. So it's not like you're going to prevent a murder by saving this person's life. You might just get that person murdered and yourself murdered too.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. It's
that's where I suppose you can justify it, because it's in a war zone, right? But what I'm doing is setting it in a normal town, not at war.
Yeah.
Not in any. It's just the way it has to go.
Yeah.
And the person they take out, that would cause heads to roll big time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But will it? We don't.
I don't know. Yeah.
We don't know. Because who's going to say they saw him do it? Nobody. Because no one saw it. No one saw it. There were...
I could see someone getting object fixated too, because like when you are chasing something or someone and you're trying to catch up in real time and you're on source time, which is always behind real time, until maybe you get them in the same room and you're like, can I close the circle around this person who's in this room right now with my source? Up to and including killing my source who's in that room, right? Because it's time to do that. You can lose perspective of, hey, we can just wait till tomorrow. This guy's not going to stop being a bad dude. And a lot of times it takes someone outside of the circle to say, nah, we're not doing that. And then you're like, is that your call? And they're like, well, we know he's got this pattern. We know he goes to this house every day. Why don't we just work that house more thoroughly? And maybe you don't get that guy. And maybe he detects, maybe he kills your source anyhow. But man, it's easy to be like, let's all costs go get that guy, and it doesn't always pay the bills. And then, by the way, if you get that guy, that's just another guy.
Yeah, it's just another guy.
Yeah, being able to track that person is as valuable as taking them out quite often. Yeah. Yeah, because they're going to talk. They're going to communicate. And if your source is that close, truly, for as long as they can be there, it might be better to leave that person alive and have eyes and ears on them all the time.
Yeah, that's true. I can see how that would work in many situations, except this one. The person they take out is much hated. But also the very top of the food chain for them.
Yeah.
So they're doing that. They're going to jail for a very, very long time if anyone works out what really happened and if his body's ever found. So it's well cleaned up.
Yeah, I like it. I can't wait.
Then they have to backtrack.
This is the new one that's going to come out soon?
Yeah. It's supposed to be out end of June, but now I'm having surgery on the 1st of May. So my editor's still got the book, and she can't get the edits back till probably the end of April.
Right.
I won't have time. So we might be pushing it to August, just so that I can actually have two hands at work, because trying to format and do edits with my left hand, probably not going to be fun.
Probably not going to be fun.
No.
I want you to talk really quick to anybody who's an author out there who's trying to write books and thinks they can self-edit.
Oh, please don't.
Thank you for saying that.
Please don't. I mean, by all means, you should be doing that first. You should be going through your work first.
Yeah.
But please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't. And I've been doing this a really long time. But no.
Yeah.
I've got a thing about commas. I used to put not enough. Now I put too many.
Yeah. I've gone that way too. Yeah.
Because you get told, oh, and there's a comma here. So you end up with all these commas, which then have to be removed because.
And that's just commas, right? You know, like when
that's nothing else. That's
editors have a very special skill. They know how a book is supposed to be, and things that you can't believe are bad, they'll point out, and you're like, damn it, you know what? You're right. You know, they it's a different skill altogether.
It is, and it is keeping you honest, and you need that. You need it. If you're a writer, you need an editor, and you need a beta reader who is going to keep you honest. Who's going to go, would that character really? Would that person really say that? Or in my case, because I'm so far away from the Byte series now, mentally, I struggle with the Americanism of Ben. He's an American living in New Zealand, but he is American.
Right.
And so Margot always reads for me. She's fantastic. Margot Kimberg, buy her books. She's amazing. She will go through. You need her on the show. She'll go through, do a first pass for me, and she'll go, let's change that sentence round because that's not quite American enough for Ben, which is great because without that, Ben would have slid into Kiwi land, which is not a bad thing, but he is maintaining his Americanism because he needs it.
Right.
And it's just, you need someone who spots shit. Who goes,
It's true though, because like I'm an American, so when I go to Canada, for sure, and I don't go to Canada very often, but for sure, I'm making cracks, at least in my head, about how like you have a queen or had a queen on the wall. Now you got a king. And if I'm in New Zealand, the same thing. And I'd be like, but we don't have a king on the wall. You know, we
also
won.
Have healthcare, you know.
right. But totally right. Like we should have way better health. But you know, we have these things. You know, I'm like, I was talking to my daughter, and I'm like, you know, it's like I feel like we're less free now that we're north of the border. I talk with this ridiculous voice. You know, like, I don't see any bald eagles up here, you know, and it's just like, you get to be ridiculous, but that's an American thing, is just to either be mockable or to mock your own mockery of yourself, you know, and it's, I don't know, there's these things.
It's a very Kiwi thing too. We take the piss big time. Of everybody. I mean, it's a country full of it. But that's the fun of writing a Kiwi series, because there's little things that will creep in. That it's just the way we talk. We use some weird phrases.
Well, it just like there's certain words you'll say, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. You know, like there's like this things. With my buddy Wes, who's he is Hollish. No, he's not Hollish. He's Belgian from Belgeland, but he lives in England, and so he's got a mix of England and Belgish in his thing. So he'll say like we were corpsing, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. But that's what makes him and me, and it's incredible that it's incredible that we get to do all of this. You're in a different day than I am right now.
Welcome to the future. Can you see the sun? It's so sunny.
Do cars fly in the sky there, you know?
Unfortunately, no. We were lied to by the Jetsons. We were lied to.
Right.
I mean, 2023, where's my bloody flying car?
I know. I want that damn thing. I'm excited that you made the leap over and that you got something that has stuck. Is there anything else you're working on the side besides your PI spy stuff?
Yeah, I can just tell you what releases next week. Is a novella that my daughter asked me to write, and I kept thinking it's a romance, but what I didn't know was it's got suspense, it's got mystery. It's okay. It's not full-on romance. It's called Written in Leaves.
Written in the Leaves. Yes.
Written in Leaves. Yeah.
Written in Leaves.
And I didn't like it. I'm going to put that out there. Hated writing it. Didn't like it until like almost the last 2 chapters, and I went, these characters are actually kind of cool. And it's very New Zealand. It's about 3 sisters in New Zealand. One of them's got a secret set to derail their whole family, and it was fun. In the end, it was fun, but to start with, I was like, "Oh my god, why is she making me write this?"
Yeah.
And it's third person. I don't do that very often. So I was like, but I've had some really good comments already. So maybe I do that.
I love to think, like, when people say, "Oh, you're talking in third person," and they make like a joke about it, because it is funny, but it's weird when you talk in the second person.
Oh, for sure.
He talks to Cat on the. No, it's like, wait, it's creepy. Like, you're like, I don't know. It's weird.
It's weird. It's like, I always describe second person as someone telling you what you're doing, and it irritates me because I hate to be told what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Ugh. I'm like, no.
Is there a person besides first, second, and third person now? Like, I never really thought about this, but I bet there must be some kind of amalgamation, or because of all the modern stuff.
When every fourth character speaks, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's first and second, there's third. I mean, third does a lot. Third does a lot all by itself, because you've got different points of view in third, rather than just God mode, which oh God mode's so annoying. It's like, back off. I don't want to see everybody's thoughts. But no, I think we're okay with just first, second, and third.
Yeah. I think that there is a fourth voice. I'm going to think about what it is. I'm going to think about, and my mind says that it's something with like AI, where there's ChatGPT. Okay, so let me give you an example. The other day, I don't know if this makes sense. I'm just trying this right now live, but I told ChatGPT, I'm like, hey, write me a resume, and then it came back, and it was an awesome resume. Like, whoever this P.A. Turner was, I'm like, that guy is incredible. None of it was true. So I'm like, if I posted this and said ChatGPT wrote me a resume, and I let you decide, like, on whatever you wanted to think about that, does that resume become a reality, a fact? Does it become true?
Oh,
because to the next AI robot, that's Pete's resume.
Yeah.
And it repeats it and it repeats it, and it becomes a resource. That could be fourth voice, where you have this.
That could be AI.
Yeah.
AI is fourth voice.
Yeah. Like, it generates this alternate reality that may or may not be true, or has shades of truth in it that are completely different. And when it comes into the storytelling process, it's kind of like a joker, like a jester, like it's chaos making. Maybe.
It would be chaos. It would be.
Yeah.
But does that, because if enough people believe it, does it make it true?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, does that make that resume? Try to say, this is my resume, because I can see the future, because this robot wrote it, and it's going to keep writing that thing because it believes that this is true now. I didn't tell it to write that I had all these incredible degrees. I have degrees, and they're okay, but they're middle of the road schools, right? This Pete Turner went to Michigan. He went to Oxford. He went to Cambridge.
Oh, he's awesome.
Like, yeah, that guy's awesome. I'd like to know that guy. And like, that's out there now. That exists, and you'd have to defeat that. Like, how do you prove that I didn't go to Cambridge? You can call Cambridge, but then there'd always be these resources. Like, well, there's 25. Like, it can become reality, and so maybe that's the fourth voice.
Maybe it is. I think you've got something there. I think that could be the fourth voice, is AI, because it doesn't take much to get people to believe something.
Yeah. What else you got? What else do you want to chat about? I don't want to keep you all night on a Friday night or a Saturday morning.
Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Afternoon. Well, I just decided that I'm going to write the next story for the written in leaves thing, because Bree's decided that the next sister needs her own shot.
Yeah.
Because one of my first editors read the book for me, and he came back at the end with so many questions. I was like, do these two get together? Do these two get together? What happens here? What about the bad ones? And I'm like, is there going to be a sequel? And
I guess
because
there
was
is.
So darn keen.
Another novella?
Yeah. I think if I can just in my brain think it's
Mhm.
okay, it's only 38,000 words. You can do
Yeah.
that. That's all right. It's not like
Yeah.
a huge commitment. It took 2 years, but it's not like a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Then maybe I can write Poppy's story, and then
Yeah.
maybe I can write one for Lily as well, and then we've got all 3 sisters, and then I just go, "Done," because there were 3
Love it.
sisters, now they're done. And then
I
I'm
love it.
free to just do my own thing with my
Yeah.
spies, because I
Yeah.
mean, there's obviously gonna be another Veronica Tracy spy
Yeah.
PI.
Well, and you know how to write these books now, and so you don't have to crank them out one after the other. You can do other things because you know
Yeah.
those characters are in there wrestling in your head.
Yeah.
And like it's like me, like if I take some time, I used to not want to take time off from doing the show, but now
Yep.
I'm like, no, I'm gonna take a week-long break. I'm not gonna think about it at all. And because it's proven that I know how to put podcasts together, and I'm apparently not gonna stop. So I
Yep.
don't have to work.
Do
I don't have to work as
every day.
constantly.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Still got to work
Yeah.
hard. Still got to keep it up. But
Yeah, I
know,
think you're right. Now that I'm about to release the 3rd, 4th book in this series,
right.
the characters are pretty cemented in my brain. So
Mm-hmm.
I can do something else. Then I can come back and go, "Hey, what's Crockett doing?"
Yeah.
And I already know the next one's going to be called Foxtrot Mike Lima.
Fuck my life.
Yeah.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, because I just had the scene pop up a wee while ago. So I've written the first scene and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, this is going to be
Yes.
fun. This centers around Ben. Something's happened. I'm like, this is going to be fun.
Can I name the book after that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do LMFAO, and I'll give you a premise for the book.
I like it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've got an idea, and so maybe we can you can do it like a side. Like I love the in betwinkle. So
Yep. Oh,
maybe
yeah,
Ben
brilliant.
goes on vacation to the Keys or something.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit crazy. So yeah,
that would be really fun.
Yeah.
That would be fun to write. I like doing stuff in between.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's some magic in that in between stuff. You get to know Ben more, or whoever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up?
No, just go buy my books. Go on, shoot. Off you go. Buy all my books.
Let me put this up here one more time. Get over to Smashwords and buy. You can get a discount today if you go to Smashwords.
Yeah.
Just go to Smashwords and type in Cat Connor. If you don't get the discount, guess what? Buy Cat's books anyhow, because this is how this lady makes money. I mean, she's a fantastic author.
They're actually cheaper than coffee, so come on.
Yeah, come on. Let's all buy a book for Cat. Cat. Once I get paid here in a few minutes, and I go see my brother, I'm going to go buy a book. Which spy PI book should I buy?
Lure the Lie, number 2. Lure the Lie. That one.
All right.
I'm
going to buy that one.
It. It's kind of fun.
Okay.
It is.
All righty. All right. I'm going to roll these credits. Stand by for 1 sec. I'll be right back to you. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to.